Hello and welcome to Wavelength's webinar, Maximizing Development Goals During COVID-19 with Data. In this webinar, we are covering how important data is in helping you reach your goals, engage with your constituents, and impact your processes and enhance them. We have split up this webinar into 3 online sections. Section 1 is about data types and how you can identify your data needs. Section 2 is identifying your data health and finding ways to improve it. And Section 3, which we are in, is all about improving your processes and constituent touchpoints with data. In this exercise and the approach around improving your processes, what you really want to focus on is your current constituent touchpoints. How are you engaging with them year round? You want to be sure that you are developing data-driven processes that capture the data you need to get the results you want. I have listed out a few different processes that you should consider. One being just ongoing projects and campaigns that you have, the other being around donations, whether that's one-off, during a capital campaign, during annual giving, and more. And the other two, the biannual and annual confirm your data, and the new graduates or constituents are necessary to consider because they might not be actual touch points you've thought of. From a confirm your data standpoint, in the previous sections, we've reviewed how data declines in accuracy year over year because people are changing jobs, moving, what have you. What you do want is to ensure that you are keeping your data as up to date as possible. And you can do that through an annual confirm your data, but you combine that with an actual touch point, which we'll get to in a second. The constituents side of things is you have to really think through your users and their customer journey with you. As you have new graduates, so that's seniors going into new alumni phase, or if you have any of alumni turning into parents of current students, you really need to map out the process and user experience they have with you and what touch points you have with them to ensure that it's a seamless experience as well as highly engaging experience for your constituents. To start, what you want to do is map out the touch points you have with your constituents to date. In this view, it is a 12-month view, very high level. I'm missing a lot of touch points, but I've just captured a few here for you to think through. I also encourage you developing a timeline like this, except during a constituent journey instead, from graduate to long-term loyal donor or any other segment you can think of. These touch points are really valuable because you need to think through all of the data that is supporting you in these touch points and what data could be supporting if you aren't already using it, and what are those output data points that you should be considering in the long run. For example, if you're looking at under July and that new alumni welcome, you really want to focus on that personalization. You are just starting off a relationship with this new alumni and you are trying to develop a long-term relationship with them. So developing personal stories and really that personal connection is necessary. So you need to think through what data you do have or what data you want to acquire so you can maintain a longer term relationship with them down the line. Same with reunions. You're likely already segmenting people by class years because of the invites to start, but you also likely are maybe having some happy hours for loyal donors. You are already using data whether you know it or not. The key is to start identifying it more purposefully and using it to the best of its ability. I'm going to just drop into a quick process example of what you might already have today and how you can improve it with data. So let's say you're collecting class notes or you're mobilizing some class officers to help. This is where you are, sending class officers emails of their peers to communicate with, giving them instructions on how to obtain class notes, and then off to the class officer. All they have to do is email their class and they receive notes and photos. What they also probably are doing, whether you know it or not, is receiving some email bounce rates, or they might be using some contact data that you weren't aware of simply because a class officer has a personal relationship with the user and you don't know that your data is out of date. You then would receive the class notes and compile it and publish and distribute it to constituents, all still just using the original data on hand. But what you're missing is a touch point with your constituents where they could either update you with more up-to-date contact information, And you're also unaware of any of the data issues of your delivery. So what you could do instead is try and combine class notes with a confirm your data. Remember what I said before, where you should be trying to confirm your data at least once or twice a year? Combine it with a touch point you already have. In this way, you can have a personalized outreach. What you're seeing here is through our mail merge emails on wavelength, but what you're able to do is send a request for class notes along with a confirm your data. Why is this important? Users are more likely to update information if they see it's incorrect. So if you are simply just asking for information, they're likely not going to remember what's the last address you have on file. So actually visually seeing it is powerful. On top of that, by asking for data in combination with class notes, your constituents are seeing a reason behind keeping you informed with their data. They're realizing that this is a way for them to stay in touch with the community and that they are getting value out of this additional relationship with you all. So instead, your new class note collection process can look like this. Your advancement team mobilizes class officers with emails of all of their classmates, and volunteers are either given a link that they are encouraged to have their peers update their data from, or you can use a system like our mail merge campaign that gives volunteers access to send personalized emails without actually seeing the data of their peers. Then class officers email their class. They receive notes, photos, maybe some updated contact information that's directly from email rather than going through some site to update their data. And then you, as an advancement team, receive the class notes as well as updated contact data and a report from class officers with any sort of data issues they might be having. This allows you to communicate with your constituents and give them the class notes in whatever format you send, whether it's a journal or magazine or newsletter. And it also gives you the ability to better communicate with constituents down the line. So that bonus is you've identified some data health issues if there's any sort of missing information, and you have more accurate data for communication in the future. So when you're trying to review your processes, you want to look at the current process you have on hand. What tasks are being completed? By when should they be completed? What systems and tools are available to support in this process? And what sample pieces do you have? Rather than doing any sort of duplicative effort, you probably have a lot of sample marketing materials from previous campaigns you've used. Compile them, have it all listed out, and really identify all of the inputs, everything that goes into this process end to end. From there, you want to really identify where are the areas of improvement. What are the inputs and outputs of this process? How can you make it more impactful? So, what we want to focus on here from a data perspective is really thinking through what data do I have that could make this process all the more better. One is thinking outreach. How am I communicating with my constituents and through what channel? What is my data health within the different channels between email, social media, phone, direct mail, what have you? Is the purpose of my outreach being reached knowing the data health of my contact data? Then you want to think through engagement and personalization. How can I increase engagement of my constituent base? Is there knowledge I have on the constituents that I'm tracking today or should be tracking that could help with my communication? And lastly, expanding your reach through segmentation. Can you engage with a subset of personas that would all feel engaged in a personalized way through segmentation and still reach your end goal? Lastly, you want to review what you are capturing during this touch point and if there's anything more from a data perspective that you can add in to make sure that you maintain that data health that we covered in section 2 of this webinar. After you've done identifying all of the improvement areas, you then want to design a new process. And there are several different ways you can visualize this process. You really have to identify what works best for you and your team. But bottom line, you want to map out all of these steps along the process and ensure you have clear guidelines on how to store and update your data. You also want to make sure that there is a streamlined approach that uses data to drive your process forward and also captures that data in the end to be impacting future processes. The biggest watch outs I have or I have seen rather when processes are being developed or enhanced is that there isn't clear assigned ownership. If you have all of these steps along a process, but no one clearly owns it, especially when you have remote teams, something could be lost along the way. So make sure you assign responsibilities. Two is unclear timelines. You want to really determine those clear expectations of how long each of these tasks take by when it should be completed. Especially as I mentioned with this remote work, you don't have a drive-by ability to just walk by someone's desk to see if something's completed or not. You want to make sure that everyone understands and has expectations of what their delivery needs are. You also want to make sure your process isn't cut short or beginning too late. And by that, I mean, oftentimes you think of a process is just the start of mobilizing your volunteers for class notes. That's the beginning of it. However, you're missing all of the parts before that and also all of the other players. So you need to think through the timeline of when are you sending the request, and you're not alone in communicating with your constituents. So if you're sending out an email blast to all of your constituents, you need to understand if there are any other marketing campaigns going on. You don't want to, over spam someone's inbox with communication. So you really want to make sure that you have the beginning part of the process captured as well as the end, where the end of class notes isn't just collecting it all, isn't just the delivery of the class notes. It's also making sure that you have, at the very end of the process, an understanding and review of how did the process go, what needs to be changed, how can we improve it, because you always want to be innovating and getting better. Last watch out is complexity. You want to keep it simple. If you're too complex, it's going to create redundancies, it's going to reduce your accuracy, it's going to take so much time up. You really want to be simple, especially during this time during COVID and with year end coming around. You want to focus on simple, simple, simple. So, when you're designing a process, remember that you want to review the success of it and consider the deliverables. Are there changes that need to be made for the future? Do that right after the process is over because you're likely to forget if you wait too long. You want to be customer first. You want to make this process easy for the constituent, and you don't want to lose the data. Update all systems and platforms on your data. What needs to be changed? What are you tracking? Who is tracking it? What have you? Now, as I've really prompted and kept on pushing and for data, you have to understand that not all, while you can track a lot of it, it doesn't make sense to actually capture all of the data you could potentially track. You also probably don't have the capabilities, time, or time to do so. So, what you want to focus on is collecting the data that's going to help you reach your goals, improve your future projects, and grow your constituent knowledge. So, as you look at everything that can be tracked, really focus on, does it answer one of these three needs? So, as you're looking to finish out the year with data, in the short term, what you want to do is really prioritize reviewing the processes you have in place, that you have those touch points with constituents in this next month. You then want to consider, where are you going to put your energy? Determine what you can do now with the data you have on hand. And you really want to focus on staying in touch and building that relationship with people. As far as data goes, I wanted to share this knowledge with you around retention rates, where recapture rates for attrition of donors is 4%. So all of the effort you make and put in to trying to bring donors in the door is lost after they stop giving, nearly after the first year. So when you're thinking about hitting your annual fund goals right now, what I think about is actually just maintaining that relationship and retaining your current members. This is just a quick scenario around attrition rates and how, after just a few years, what a large difference it makes in terms of number of donors that you keep, depending on how many you lose each year. This visual gives it into dollar values of, after, if you are able to retain 10% more of your donor base today, how much more money you're able to make in, a 5, 10, 15-year run. This is long-term relationships you're trying to build, and using data, you're able to maintain it. In this research done by Boomerang, there was questions to donors around why they stopped giving to organizations, and these were the top 8 reasons they stopped giving. I have just circled 6 of the 8 that are preventable, all because of data. This is the list of why donors keep giving. Every single one of these, again, is impacted by data. If you use your contact information, proper processes, and personalization with the segmentation, you are able to make people feel engaged with your school, understand why they keep giving, and have a strong relationship with you. So it's doable to retain your donors now for long-term relationships, especially through COVID and this new pandemic everyone is facing together. So in the short term, while you prioritize the goals you need to reach for the next month, then consider the long term in the future when you do have time, review your data health, update your processes all together through the calendar year and the customer journey, and identify the value of your data. How are you going to improve it? Whether that's actively with your constituents or through other means like data enrichment services. Thank you so much for your time.